LeetCode problem number 134, gas station. So this problem gives us n gas stations along a circular route where the amount of gas at each station is inside of the gas hub. So over here, for example, in this index, there will be 1 gas, 2 gas, 3 gas, and so on. So we have a car with an unlimited gas tank. This means that this car can store an unlimited amount of gas, and it costs as much cost as it says here in the cost array to travel from, let's say, this index to the other index, right? It will cost 3. So here it will begin the journey with the empty tank, and basically what we have to do is return the starting gas station's index if we can travel around the circuit once in the clockwise direction. Otherwise, we return -1. Okay, so what it means is we have to find the starting index. For example, the starting index in this case is here. So from here, if we want to move to another gas station, like for example, if you want to travel to station 4, which is this station, it will cost us 1 gas, right, as stated over here. But we will get 5 gas in return. So for some gas stations, there will be net loss, right, where the cost is more than the gas given. And for other stations, there will be net gain, where the cost of the station of traveling is lower than the gas we would get, right? So this is my approach to this problem. So let's have an example. So I'll be using these two. Let's the example again. Okay. Let me rearrange it a bit. So okay, right. So here I have an integer called surplus. So surplus would store whether or not we have more gas or not, right? Surplus for in this instance is 0. So total is the one that we will check whether or not we could complete the circuit or not. So total is basically would include all of the surplus. So for now it starts at 0, and start is basically the starting index that we will return, which will start at 0 as well. So here I have a for loop that starts at the beginning of both arrays, right? And here I have another integer called net, which would calculate the difference between the gas and the cost. So for this case, we are starting at index 0. The net would be 1 minus the cost 3. So net would be -2, right? So I update total and surplus. And here, if my surplus is less than 0, what I'm going to do is skip this starting position and start somewhere else instead, right? Surplus less than 0, I'll update so that surplus equals back to 0. Since surplus is already 0, we don't have to do that. And start will now increment, will +1. So I in this case is 0, +1 is 1. Okay, so surplus was the one that was -2, and then since surplus now becomes 0. Okay, next I increment by 1. We calculate the net again. So in this case, the net now is gas, which is 2 minus 4. So this net gain is -2. Again, it's not a net gain, but we would increment the total again to 4. So -2 plus -2 will give us -4. Surplus plus -2, this will give us -2. And since surplus is less than 0, surplus will go back to 0. And start will increment once more. Okay, Again, I will increment. Now we are at gas 3, cost 5, net us again with -2. Right, 3 minus 5 will give us -2. So the total, again, -6. The surplus will become -2 once again. And since the surplus is less than 0, so we don't want to start at this index. So we move surplus back to 0 and count again. We start incrementing to 3. Now that we are at the third index, which we have 4 gas and 1 cost, so if we calculate it, we will get 4 minus 1 is 3. The total plus the net, we write so plus 3, this will give us -3. And the surplus, we will get 3. Now since there is an actual surplus, so meaning we are good with this starting position, we don't need to change anything for now, and we are good to move on to the next gas station. Right, so I increments, we calculate the net again, so this time is 5 minus 2, this will give us 3 as well. Total plus equals to net, so this will give us a total of 0. The surplus plus equals to net, so this will give us another 3, this is 6. And since surplus is more than 0, we don't have to do anything about it, meaning that from here on out, since we have iterated through the entire list of gas and cost, we have concluded that to travel around these gas stations, the total cost would be 0, meaning that we have just enough gas to travel around, right? If the total number is, let's say, -2, meaning that for every round we do, we will lose 1 gas, right? Because the gas is lower than the cost, right? Which means that for this case, we will have to return -1, right? But since the total is 0, meaning that we have just enough gas, we can return the starting index, which in this case would be 3, right? That's where we started off. Okay. Otherwise, we return -1, like I mentioned, if the total was less than 0. If the total was more, let's say 5, that is still completely fine, right? Because that would just mean that for every round we do, we will get extra 5 gas, and that does not mean that we will run out of gas when we are traveling. So we can still return the starting index 3, no problem. Okay, so this solution is another example of a greedy solution. That's all I have to show. Thanks.